Welcome to the Healthy Brain Toolbox. I'm Dr. Ken Charlin, neurologist and host for this show. In each episode, I interview influential people whose work impacts how we live and how we think. My guests are leaders in the health and fitness industry, physicians, scientists. Here you'll find conversations that break down barriers, expand your horizons, and give you the tools you need to protect your health and nourish your aging brain. Welcome to the Healthy Brain Toolbox. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Charlin, and today's guest is Michael Ponce. Now, I met Michael a few years ago, and we crossed paths fairly frequently, either in the clinic or at trade shows, where he works presently for a company called NuMedica, and they are a supplier of high-end nutraceutical quality supplements. And it's a very interesting background. The topic of supplements is so important, and I think you're going to find that there's misinformation, there is lack of information at times. Our goal over the next 45 minutes to an hour is to bring a lot of clarity. I have patients that come to me and say, should I take this? Is this good? Is this a good one? And I'm often responding with, make sure you are buying your products from a reputable company that does the appropriate analysis so that you're sure that you're getting what you're buying. And then I often will recommend that rather than use many products just empirically, meaning, is this good for me? That kind of thing, that we do a lot of measurement and figure out what your needs actually are. But I think we're going to go in some different directions. I've talked long enough. Michael, thank you so much for being on the Healthy Brain Toolbox.
You're welcome, Dr. Charlin. The supplement industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the question is, what am I taking? Is it for me, and is it safe? A little bit about my background. My background is in molecular science. I started off in the vaccine industry, moved into cancer biology, and worked for a university hospital helping pathologists diagnose different blood cancers. And then I moved into diagnostic sales. I learned a lot about that industry and what other companies are doing when it comes to innovation. And then I moved on into supplements. So I've always been interested in health, innovative technologies, and how do we optimize and improve ourselves for longevity purposes. So I've gathered a lot of information over the years in how different industries are achieving this, but then also coming across different things as far as what loopholes do they get through to get their point across. And so right now, yes, I'm in the supplement industry. I've been in this industry for a little over 2 years, and I myself have always taken a lot of different vitamins for multiple purposes, whether it's because I'm trying to reach a certain level of health or trying to replenish something I've lost from a workout, right? So many different proteins, multivitamins, maybe some things to increase memory. So getting into the supplement world and learning about manufacturing and distribution and marketing, I began to question practices from other companies of, hey, what does it mean to have the ideal product? You open up anyone's medicine cabinet or pantry, find a plethora of different brands and different vitamins that people might take from day to day. What really differentiates one from another? And so I think these are questions that everyone should ask, not just practitioners, but people who are consuming them. I really think there was a report that was released last year by Consumer Reports. They looked at about 15 different companies that provide proteins, and they tested them for heavy metals, particularly lead, cadmium, and inorganic arsenic. And they found that a lot of these compounded proteins contained an excess amount of lead. Some of them had an excess amount of cadmium and inorganic arsenic. Those particular metals can really set an individual backwards, especially when you're trying to have them achieve a certain goal in life, whether it's improving cognition, improving memory, or improving general health. You have somebody who has poor health, and then you have them taking a supplement to improve that issue, but then they are tainted or they have excess properties in them, you're then fighting fire with fire and
Mm-hmm.
taking longer for those patients to reach their goal. It has nothing to do with the provider. It's just that there's not enough education out there to have people ask these questions. Is this a clean product? You tend to depend on the marketing of either an individual or a company stating that this is safe. There are organizations out there that do put these checks and balances in place that will ensure you have safety when you're taking these supplements. But it's up to the consumer to know what to look for and what providers need to be educated to and what to look for.
I wonder if we go back to the journey of the product itself, like many supplement brands, high-end supplement brands, they may provide the encapsulation process, but the raw materials used to make that product are not necessarily produced by that supplement company. So I wonder if you can walk through that journey. Where does the raw material start? And is it tested at different stages along the way?
There are a lot of manufacturers out there that allow certain ingredients to be purchased, then can be compounded into a capsule or a tablet or even a powder. So when it comes to sourcing, they have these huge trade shows throughout the nation, around the world, for these companies to introduce a particular ingredient, and they talk about sourcing, right? So people might take a green tea, right? For example, green tea can be sourced here in the United States or can be sourced overseas, right? Or American ginseng and Chinese ginseng, right? One can be sourced here in the United States, one can be sourced in China. They all have different levels of potency. Depending on the goal of the particular formula, you want to make sure you're gathering this information when it comes to how potent that particular ingredient is. So, yes, there are conversations about potency, and there are also some questions that get left out when it comes to environmentally sourcing. I think it's important to source ingredients from American manufacturers because we do have more environmentally protective statutes in place when it comes to farming, right? A lot of these supplements have different herbal components. When you grow anything in the ground, depending on what industrial complex was in that particular area and irrigation wise, this particular herb or whatever source it is could have some runoff that will contain things like lead or inorganic arsenic or cadmium in it, especially if there was maybe a paint manufacturer in the early 50s. They could use those products in paint. That particular site was not cleaned up appropriately. And you have a farm next to that site that's growing these herbal components that then are put in these supplements. We had the EPA has things in place where, hey, you cannot source these items for human consumption. You must move this farm somewhere else. So that's the important thing about sourcing ingredients here in the United States. Now, if you're sourcing things in China, unfortunately, those ethics are not necessarily there. You're running the risk of getting a supplement that might have these inorganic properties in them or could be having a component that could be harmful for human consumption. Say you're developing a product and you are sourcing from China. There are third-party testing facilities that you should be using to make sure that these levels are following FDA guidelines for human safety. Not all companies are following this rule when it comes to third-party testing. So when I tell patients or clinicians what to look out for, you want to make sure that there is some sort of third-party testing involved into whatever company you're using. You can go on Google and say, is XYZ company third-party tested? I can break it down and say, actually, yes, they're a part of the National Sanitation Foundation, and they use third-party testing methods to ensure your safety. After speaking to a lot of other supplement companies, I realize not a lot of people follow those guidelines, which is unfortunate. It does cost money to be a part of these organizations, but it is a number one rule, in my opinion, that they must be a part of these organizations if they're selling supplements. Sourcing is Really important because you want to make sure that these supplements are being sourced from a reputable company that has guidelines in place that protect these herbal ingredients.
Time for a brief message from one of our sponsors. Do you ever find yourself struggling with brain fog, memory lapses, or that mid-afternoon crash? Maybe it's difficulty focusing, mental fatigue, or even the early signs of cognitive decline. These can all be signals that your brain isn't getting the fuel it needs. That's why I recommend Keto 5, a breakthrough in targeted brain nutrition. Their supplements, Exo Genius and Exo Ultra, are scientifically designed to support focus, memory, and long-term brain health. Exo Genius delivers a rapid boost in ketone levels, giving your brain clean, sustained energy for hours, without sugar, without carbs, without the crash. Exo Ultra goes deeper, providing a pure beta-hydroxybutyrate formula to help you achieve effective ketosis for sharper focus and stronger mental clarity. But it's more than energy. Research shows that ketones can reduce neuroinflammation, protect brain cells, and support mitochondrial health, key defenses against conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Imagine clear thinking, better memory, and a brain that thrives, not just today, but for years to come. Fuel your mind, protect your future. Visit drcharlens.com/collections/keto5, KETO5, to learn more and get started today. Because I know that when we're talking about this in my clinic, you pointed out that if you look on the bottle or the manufacturer's catalog, they're going to actually have these logos. So what would they actually look for?
There are certified seals that you would see on any kind of published document that is official that say, hey, this is third party tested or CGMP quality, say good manufacturing practice seal. When I'm in a drugstore, I look at bottles and I turn them around and I look at them because there's certain guidelines that companies are supposed to follow when it comes to ingredients and distributor information and whatnot. Because I've been doing this for some time, if I look at a label, I can say, ooh, this is within guidelines, or there's somebody who's not checking whether this is done appropriately. That's a red flag. There are official seals of certification because this supplement world can be unregulated at times. There are companies that design these third-party approval seals that make it look like the official ones, but they are not. I'm more than welcome to shoot you over a group of them that can show your audience what to look for to know that this is indeed third-party tested and within federal guidelines, and then what not to look for. Think that's really important because you have companies out there that are saying that they are following the guidelines of good manufacturing practices, but they're not actually certified by the GMP process. And those are two different things. So it's saying, yes, what I'm making in my restaurant is quality food, but I don't have a food handling license, but I'm following all the rules to be compliant. Compliancy labels, they're not certified labels. And that is a red flag when it comes to purchasing any kind of supplement or anything that you're consuming in general.
There's another dimension to this that I think folks should be aware of. I have not personally gone into these third-party labs. There is a company, it's called Consumer Lab or consumerlab.com. I always explain to folks as much like Consumer Reports, but they tend to be focused on the supplement industry. And they will say, let's say they're interested in a given week in turmeric products or turmeric. So they'll buy 30, 40 different products from different manufacturers, different brands. and test them for contaminants. If you buy a product, let's say it says 500 milligrams per capsule,
Mhm.
does it actually have 500 milligrams? It's shocking when you start to
Absolutely.
look at that data. This does not single out any one company. This is across the board. Of course, you'll have best choice, worst choice,
Mhm. Yeah.
how many per milligram or pennies per milligram, things like that, because they'll say, look, this has the right amount, the price is this. Buy this product, you're really getting what you paid for. But I thought it was interesting that not only do we have to worry about these contaminants, we have to worry about, are we actually buying what we think we're buying?
And when you mention that to consumers, the amount of time that I meet with people on a daily basis, when I bring that up, the fire in their eyes, especially when you're talking directly to the patient, they can't believe it because for them, they're saying, I want to trust an industry enough to, if I give them an X amount of dollars, I am then receiving a product that I paid for. We have to go into detail and say, you're getting up to 50% of this vitamin or mineral or herb because the rest is a filler. The company does reporting and analysis, putting percentages of saying, this is top 20. This one has a daily limit of how often you should take it due to toxicity, or you have this particular percentage of this X amount of what you're trying to consume in this product, or less or more. And they do a great job breaking that down. And that's a very good point because even as a clinician, if you are treating somebody for vitamin D deficiency, which is common in the United States, and you want to get somebody to a particular number, and you're reading a bottle and you say, oh, there's 10,000 IUs of vitamin D here, you know how often they should take it, how long they should be on it until you're going to test their levels. Now, when you talk to other clinicians where they look at these labs and they're thinking, I've had this client on this product for 6 months and it's not moving the needle. What is the problem? The problem is you actually don't have 10,000 IUs in that product. You have much less. And because of that, you should be double the dosing and probably increasing the amount of vitamin D that they're taking for that brand. And then move forward and you will see the difference. And that's why it's important to have laboratory diagnostics in your practice so you can test against these supplements because as clinicians, you are gathering the raw data as well.
We sometimes use this term nutraceutical. It's a way to pretty up the word supplement. It's taken from pharmaceutical,
Right.
but the idea that as a neurologist, as a functional medicine and regenerative medicine trained provider, I want to make sure that my patients are using supplements of the highest possible quality. There's sort of the implication in the word nutraceutical that it's a higher quality, physician grade. But on the other hand, it's easy to go to the big box store where they sell much less expensive product.
Correct.
And from a purely sales perspective, we sometimes gravitate, hey, why would I spend twice as much for this when I can get the same thing, right, for half the price? This discussion encompasses what we've already discussed, but I still want to bring some attention to what do I get if I go to the big box store versus what do I get if I go to a boutique brand. I know some of the brands are large and some of them have been acquired by corporate America. You don't know that you're actually, say, taking something that is owned by Nestle or whatever. But still, there's whether it's NuMedica, whether it's Worth Molecular Products, Thorne, and again, there are many good companies out there. But how do I wrap my head around this idea of why not go to the big box store?
I believe if you're taking a supplement to achieve a goal, it should be under the care of a physician because it's a physician's responsibility. And as a physician, you should be providing the best care possible for your clients. I'm a big advocate of if you're buying a supplement, it needs to be through a provider because of the lack of regulation in the supplement space. And to what you said, there are these boutique level of supplement branding that is out there. that has a large dollar amount. And unfortunately, some of these big boutique ones aren't different quality as well, and they have a large dollar amount on them. But it's up to the practitioner and the consumer to ask questions. And when it comes to these big box organizations, they don't vet whether there are contaminants and whether we should be selling this product to consumers. They don't check that. They're there to sell it, unfortunately. And that consumer report that I mentioned with 15 different products, those were purchased from these big box entities and these direct to consumer online nutraceutical companies. The big jungle one, they were purchased through them, and they still contained all of these contaminants. So that dollar amount is very enticing. I want to spend $5 because that's all I have in my bank account, which I totally understand. Any vitamin is important to take. It's better than taking none at all. I agree with that 100%. But we have a new threat in place, and that is contaminants when it comes to mold, bacteria, and heavy metals. And when it comes to consuming those, you're going to want to buy a higher quality supplement that is third party tested, FDA regulated, to ensure that those levels are safe for human consumption. I'm going to say it again, those larger direct to consumer companies that are big box are not vetting these companies that they're putting on the shelves. People are getting sicker, and it's upsetting because you are taking something that you think is beneficial for your health. As you start feeling that toxic load unknowingly, you're going to encounter issues later on. So my big message is to purchase your supplements through a provider if possible. I hope that the provider that you are working with is using a quality product that is third party tested, FDA regulated if possible. You will hear companies saying that the FDA has nothing to do with supplements. That's not true. In the early 2000s, they developed a bioterrorism act that they asked supplement companies to be a part of to ensure that it is safe. That is also involved with the NSF, which is another third party organization that's important to be a part of because they also ensure testing involved when it comes to additives and whatnot. Label claims is important because unfortunately, a lot of these over the counter products that you buy says you might have 300 milligrams of something, and then you go and you test it and it actually shows under 150. If they're not a part of these organizations, they're still able to put on the label that they have 300 when they don't, and they don't adjust the price point. When you are dealing with a company that is compliant with all the organizations that I mentioned, it is true that what is on the label is there, and you can assure that every dollar that you are spending is going direct to that product and you are consuming all of it and it is being used.
You've brought up FDA a couple of times, FDA compliant. I just think it's worth stating for folks because of the type of practice that I have, it's not uncommon for someone to make an appointment and they say, I really don't like taking medication. I want you to treat me, quote unquote, naturally. And it's a very common thing for someone to say. I get a little lost in what that actually means. But in pharmaceuticals, there are indications. So if you take semaglutide, also known as Ozempic, it is indicated for type 2 diabetes. It's indicated for weight loss so that the manufacturer, the owner of that product, can say it is proven to treat this condition. To my knowledge, there's not a single supplement, if you look at what's in that brand, that are actually FDA approved for treatment of a disease. Like there's a brand of fish oil that was approved for cardiovascular indication through the appropriate clinical trials.
Correct.
Your doctor could say, hey, if you look at the ingredient, it's just this and this.
Right.
You can go out and take anything else, but know that only that brand has that indication. And I think that's potentially very confusing for folks to say there is no supplement for the most part, that is a proven treatment for disease under the definition that would be given by the FDA.
And as a supplement company, they have to be very careful with the verbiage when it comes to treating chronic and acute diseases. There's a lot of things that you don't say, and there's a lot of things that you can say indirectly. The FDA, there's a love-hate relationship with the FDA, but one of their main jobs is to ensure that we are all safe when it comes to consuming meat, dairy, poultry, all of those particular products, anything that we are consuming. And then they have a whole separate organization that deals with pharmaceuticals and those kind of regulations as well. You'll hear this term. There is no such thing as a pharmaceutical grade supplement. No such thing. When it's a pharmaceutical and supplement, those are two different words, two different subjects, all have the same goal, right? When it comes to supplements, a lot of times we are looking to treat in a more natural way, depending on the particular formula. But the ultimate goal there is to have a patient say, hey, we can possibly get off this statin if we just change some dietary components, right? By using these particular supplements. We're not going to call it a pharmaceutical grade supplement. Can it achieve this goal? Yes. But those two terms, pharmaceutical and supplements, do not come hand in hand. The FDA is in place for the supplement industry to ensure that they are staying within guidelines and compliancy. If there's a company that is making a claim that they have a product that can treat something topically and might have a subdermal type of delivery system, to the FDA, that is considered now a pharmaceutical drug. And those companies might get some letters to say that you cannot have this particular product if you are not registered under this pharmaceutical compliancy law, which is a whole nother budget for companies. So a lot of times I feel like supplement companies want to differentiate themselves from pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals are in place there to save lives. As you mentioned, GLP-1s, they're great. Are they helping people lose weight? Correct. Are they the long-term answer? I don't believe so. But there are supplements that can coexist and work synergistically with a GLP-1 to ensure that the nutrition that needs to be delivered while they are on these medications is in fact helping them in the long term. Not to flip-flop to a different kind of subject, but when it comes to pharmaceuticals and something that's working together, is that possible? Yes. Should it be done? I believe so. There are a lot of pharmaceuticals out there that prevent the absorption of certain minerals and vitamins, and you should be supplementing to fill those voids. But they're there to help us, and I'm thankful for them. But when it comes to optimizing your health, I don't agree that certain things need to be in place long term. I think they can be removed from a lot of individual usage. And that's where supplement companies can be very powerful in your practice. It can be very beneficial for individuals if used correctly. The subject matter here is whether or not you are indeed getting what you are taking, and is it safe for you to consume. Whatever industry you are providing in a clinic, if you are using an imaging system, if you're using diagnostics, using supplements, anything to help treat your patient to have them live a better life, do we have validations? How long has this technology been around? Is there anything newer? What is the sensitivity on this product? Can it find those issues that I'm looking for in an accurate way? Is this supplement safe? Is it tested? If you hear someone say, yes, this supplement is tested, when a manufacturer sends us the product for compounding, they have to send a COA document, a certificate of analysis. But there are companies that test against that certificate and have found discrepancies. So it's unfortunate, but it happens all the time. And that's why it's important for whatever company you are utilizing to make sure that they have that appropriate testing in place.
Now it's time for a short commercial break. Imagine a future where brain health is not just managed, but optimized. Where the symptoms of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, stroke, depression, anxiety, and even long COVID can be addressed with cutting-edge technology. That future is here. with the Neuronic Light and the Neuronic 1070 nanometer photobiomodulation helmets, a breakthrough in non-invasive brain therapy. Using near-infrared light, these devices penetrate deep into brain tissue, stimulating cellular repair, reducing inflammation, and enhancing mitochondrial function. Research suggests this technology can even enhance cognitive performance in healthy individuals, all without drugs or invasive procedures. The Neuronic 1070 helmet takes it further, offering 4 customizable operating quadrants, ideal for tailoring programs in conditions like stroke or traumatic brain injury. And with every 1070 helmet, you'll receive a free 30-minute brain health consultation to help you maximize the benefits. Whether you want to support memory, restore energy, or take proactive control of your brain health, Neuronic technology could be the game changer you've been waiting for. Unlock the power of light, heal, restore, thrive. Learn more at neuronic.online. And when you make that investment, be sure to use the code Charlin100 with a capital S to get your $100 discount, and let Neuronic know where you heard about this valuable technology. I told you a story, and I won't name the brand specifically, but I had an associate who was very good with marketing and relationships, and she forged a relationship between a company that makes it's technically probably you would call it like a medical food, but many people know, and I just want to say a brand as an analogy, it is this brand, like such as AG1, these super green type products, not that brand. Though it had a lot of good stuff in it. She was able to place it in hospitals. That's a large distribution.
Very.
And then it has to go through various committees, pharmacy committees, and things like that. And they said, we need the data safety sheet. And this company would go silent. They would not provide the data safety sheet.
Right.
And like a house of cards, the whole thing collapsed. This company was not following. Now, I'm not saying that their product wasn't clean, wasn't tested. I don't know. The problem is there was a lack of clarity with the data safety sheet, and that was pulled from all of these hospitals. So it can happen on a big scale.
I'm all for, we live in the United States. We have the ability to develop something ourselves, and if it works and we're able to provide it to large communities, right? Especially when it comes to our health. And that's a beautiful thing about our country, is that we're able to do that. Any person is able to do this. When it comes to testing, I understand alpha, beta testing, things are expensive when it comes to product launches, compliancy. Being an open book is the best thing anyone can have. You want to gain trust? Sure. Come look at all my files. Come look at everything that I have for this particular product. We want to ensure that there's all of the safety guidelines in place for you to utilize and pass out. And for all the listeners here, you can request that to any company. If you're using a company right now, email them their little info at whatever.com. And whoever you get, say, hello, hi, I'm looking for a COA document for this particular product. Can you please provide it? And if you never receive it, or if you try multiple times, because obviously these are larger companies too, they might not have the capacity to answer right away. But if you never receive it, I would advise to stop taking it. I have a provider call me or a family member call me and say, hey, I was just giving this particular product. I know you talk about this. Can you grab me one? Absolutely. It's going to take a phone call or an email. Can I get a COA? And they will shoot it over to me. And then you can literally see whether they have tested for glyphosate, whether they've tested for certain molds, whether they've tested for certain pseudomonas and bacteria. That's of importance if you are consuming it. So you want to know. But if they don't provide one, that is a red flag. And I'll talk a little bit about the NSF, National Sanitation Foundation, and the FDA. They do want these distributors and manufacturers to be compliant when it comes to their paperwork. I call them kind of the men in black. They show up to your manufacturing center, your distribution center, go through your documents. They might pick a handful of formulas, test them to make sure that they meet compliance. The good companies are doing their own testing in-house and provide that paperwork to say, hey, look, we did our own due diligence here to make sure that this is a clean product. And they love to see that. And then you get a seal of approval and you're able to put that up on your website or have your organization say, hey, we have an A+ rating this year. And that's important to point out because they do give out those types of certificates and pledges of achievements to those organizations because they want them to be compliant. But like you said, if they cannot produce that certificate of analysis, that is an issue.
Maybe some quick fired off things for the folks who are listening and watching. We talk about being a good label reader, being a good consumer. That's really the biggest overriding theme of this entire interview. And the confusion that can surround the role of a supplement when you're looking for solutions because you're affected by a specific diagnosis, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, ALS. These are the things I deal with as a neurologist. Only drugs have specific FDA-approved indications. That doesn't mean these products can't help in the situation, but there is specific language. I'm not saying the language is intentionally deceptive. I just want to make sure folks understand that the language used is deliberate. For example, aids, supports, helps, as opposed to treats. And a lot of times they're talking about a mechanism of action and reduces inflammation rather than treat the disease. But I think we're overwhelmed on TV with supplements that may well help a person maintain sharper, more resilient memory. That's not to be confused with treatment of Alzheimer's disease.
Unfortunately, there are organizations out there that do still use those buzzwords. Don't be overwhelmed. If there's something that you come across, especially on TV now, there's so much money being pushed into advertisements. When you come across something that says improve health, brain health, or improve healthy brain aging, what does that mean? Always run this back to Dr. Charlin or whoever you are seeing for primary care. Write it down and let them look at the particular formula to see if that's indeed what the goal is of that particular product. I come across things all the time that say, this is for enhanced memory and energy, and it's everywhere. I know people who take it, and then I look at the formula and I'm thinking to myself, because I have a molecular biology background, I'm looking at these ingredients. This is going to slow you down a bit. It's unfortunate that the marketing is saying it's going to help you achieve this because the consumer is eating this up and purchasing it by the case. So anytime that you come across these buzzwords, reduced inflammation, could it do? Sure. But always run it back to your primary care physician or your specialist to make sure that you are getting what you paid for. Because I've found products that make these claims, there's nothing in there that is going to significantly impact inflammation or improve cognition or prevent you from developing Alzheimer's. Supplements are not there to be the silver bullet. They're there to fill in the voids and to help you achieve that ultimate goal, whatever that is between you and your provider. So I always tell the consumer, just go back to your doctor or whoever your provider is and ask them questions. And if they don't know, they can always call someone like me who is there to help provide the background information to make sure that everyone is secure and everyone understands what this all means, because it's confusing.
Most people, I'm sure 95% of folks using supplements are not actually having any laboratory testing to justify the need for that supplement. And that's going to be primarily folks looking at vitamins, minerals,
Mhm.
omega fatty acid. You can look at amino acid levels. and a couple of antioxidants, say glutathione, for example. It's not a vitamin, it's not a mineral. You can have your glutathione levels checked. But then there's also a whole host of things that fall under this supplement umbrella that are herbal products,
Yes.
or they are mushroom. I think of lion's mane and chaga and all that. I'm not going to get a lion's mane blood level, but I might get a vitamin D. We promote the idea that you go back to the empirical observations made by Dan Buettner in the blue zones. You live past 100. The vast majority are not even taking supplements, which doesn't mean supplements are not important. We'll offer one big reason why in a moment. But to your point that we're not going to simply create health with a supplement, which, by the way, of course, the word means in addition to, and I always say in addition to food. But we look at micronutrient levels in our clinic in people who are sick. Some folks come to me looking for preventative brain health. Say, I have a family history of Alzheimer's. When we start to look at these nutrient levels, it can be shocking. And of course, that boils down to a whole variety of factors, individual food choices, organic versus not organic, nutrient density in the food itself, soil nutrient depletion, contamination. So I would say even the best of us who are trying hard are going to have some gaps. If you're looking to optimize and you understand that every nutrient, every micronutrient, that includes phytonutrients, which phyto means plant. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's craze over carnivore diet. But if I said there are 3 micronutrient classes and we benefit from all 3, and if you're on a carnivore diet, you are starving your body of a micronutrient class. I'm making an argument that from the point of view of what we can measure, it's worthwhile having those measurements made. It's worthwhile meeting with a dietitian who's more oriented toward functional nutrition. It doesn't have to be a licensed dietitian. It could be a nutritional therapy practitioner, but make sure that the knowledge and experience is really there. Get your diet, get this stuff dialed in, and figure out where gaps are and use those gaps. Herbals, that's a little murkier. I'm not saying it's inappropriate. Certainly, we're familiar with things that calm the body and the brain. We often refer to the adrenals, but it's really just the brain sending signals to the adrenal glands to reduce stress, because that narrative is part of the bigger picture of understanding the chronic stress response. In some cases, when the body and the brain have been in that cycle for a long time, a natural response is to restore some sort of balance to more or less shut things down. That's the work of Cellier and others. But my point is that there are different types of adrenal support supplements out there. And if you're in that adrenal exhaustion phase, maybe you do need something that actually raises cortisol levels a little bit. But on the other hand, if you're in a hypercortisol state, the last thing you want to do is take something that's going to raise your cortisol levels even further. Buy this stuff without a prescription, and I may not know that's the wrong product for me.
You're correct. I do my own due diligence when I walk through these pharmaceutical aisles, especially the more natural grocery stores where you can buy more of these herbal components. At a medicinal level, somebody is stuck in fight or flight and they're in this high cortisol situation and they take these herbal components that are powerful. I do know some that work really well with people. They can be doing more damage than good. The heavy metal content and the mold contents, unfortunately, with more of these herbal components, there is a higher chance of having those levels in there if you're not receiving the herbals from a very reputable company, or if they're not sourcing them from a source that is within EPA guidelines of tainted water, irrigation waters, or soil, or whatnot. So it does get a little murkier when it comes to the herbal components. And that's why it takes a team. It takes a team of knowledge, really, when it comes down to somebody walks into your clinic saying, this is what I've been taking for the past 6 months. And then you look at their labs and you look at the person as a whole person and their symptoms. And you're probably thinking to yourself, I just wish you would have come to me earlier. Yeah, because the direct to consumer market can get very murky.
Let's take a short commercial break. Looking for a natural boost to keep your brain sharp and your body energized? Discover Everyday Dose, the ultimate coffee alternative packed with lion's mane and chaga mushrooms, collagen, and L-theanine. This creamy blend supports focus, mental clarity, and overall wellness without the caffeine jitters. But coffee is not your only option. Everyday Dose also offers a premium ceremonial-grade matcha sourced from Kagoshima, Japan, and infused with the same ingredients. Whether you go for the mushroom coffee or the matcha, Everyday Dose makes fueling your mind and body a breeze. Taken together, Everyday Dose has the potential to support memory, focus, sleep, nerve regeneration, gut health, immunity, and reduce inflammation, while the collagen gives you healthier skin, hair, nails, joints, and bones. If you like, give either of these great products a try. Everyday Dose will send you a free starter kit when you purchase a 30-day supply of coffee or matcha tea. Just use my link to save, www.everydaydose.com/healthybrain, and make Healthy Brain in all capitals. With Everyday Dose, you can drink smarter, feel better, and power through your day naturally. I love this stuff. I do. I'm gonna have some right now. The other part I want folks to be aware of is if a little is good, more must be better. There are some nutrients on the vitamin and mineral side, as well as on the herbal side, that can be associated with toxicity. I think of vitamin B6, selenium, zinc, vitamin D, although you have to take an awful lot of it to get there. But I want to know what you're taking, know what your medical conditions are, know what your other medications are, because there can be drug interactions, and understand that dosing can be very deliberate, and this may not be right for you because there's a tendency to name products not for what they are, but for what the purport might do. I'll have 8 different ingredients, but what you don't know is this other product that you're taking that has a different sort of broad name also has 3 or 4 of the same products in this product.
I think vitamin B toxicity is not talked about or discussed enough. People Google or might have been steered in the wrong direction when it comes to vitamin B, B3, B5, B12, all of them, and what they actually do. They believe that taking more is better. It can cause a lot of damage. I'm not trying to give medical advice, but in the supplement world, we do see, and I do speak with clinicians where this is an issue. And you have people that are taking 7 to 8 different supplements without the appropriate guidelines, and they are taking triple, quadruple the amount of a particular vitamin, and is actually causing them to have symptoms. More is not always better. Always go to your clinician to figure this out, especially when you're taking a lot of supplements at once. Vitamin D is a big one, especially now. There are a lot of companies that have these enhanced absorption technologies. It might be more liposomal. It might be more of a micelle based, where the delivery system is indeed attaching to the cellular wall and then is being delivered directly to the cell. If you're taking an extensive amount, you can put yourself into levels of vitamin D that can be harmful. That's why it's important for you to check your labs to see where you are, because there are things that you don't necessarily need to be taking all the time. And like you said, it comes down to your nutrient intake and your daily diet, right? Naturally, we are supposed to be ingesting phytonutrients. We're supposed to be eating within the seasons, because we're not supposed to be taking the same thing all the time. No one says, hey, you need to eat a fatty steak every single day. That's not the way it works. We should be rotating our meals. So the same way is with supplements. Check with your doctor, see where you are with your laboratory markers. Sure, you have a homocysteine level. We're going to put you on some vitamins that's going to help reduce that. By taking more of it doesn't mean that it's going to get lower quicker. It doesn't mean that it's going to solve the issue. You need to be under the guidance of a physician.
There's some folks out there with some very serious liver disease, Some of these herbal supplements in particular have been found to be hepatotoxic. Be extremely careful. So if I have chronic hepatitis C, so maybe I need some liver support. If you already have chronic hepatitis C and then you're taking these herbal products, you may actually be doing yourself more harm than good.
Visceral fat and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You're absolutely correct. There are a lot of liver support products out there. They had a liver support drink in your room. They
Oh,
had one in my room. I was very familiar with that company, and I had a COA from that particular company. This liver support product that they were having the entire hotel drink or try definitely has a high mold content that no one is really talking about. I got to share that information at the conference. But if you're in a certain state of a chronic disease or even acute disease, more is not helpful, can actually be harmful. That's why on our bottles, we say, take under the care of a provider, because we don't want anyone just taking over the counter progesterone. Go to Dr. Charlene, go to whoever you're seeing and say, is this right for me? And they can put you on a path so you can reach that goal.
I just want to put in a plug for functional medicine doctors, whether you're a naturopath or a chiropractor. Unfortunately, many of my colleagues in the MD space are not knowledgeable unless they have a personal interest in this. I've had a lot of doctors simply say, don't waste your money, you're just peeing it out. There are folks who have knowledge and experience who can guide you and support you. In my clinic, when I test people, I find astonishing imbalances. And this is root cause medicine, right? People want to know, why did I get Parkinson's? Well, it didn't just fall out of the sky. And yes, there are strong associations with environmental toxins. It has nothing to do necessarily with taking a supplement. Are you being exposed to some of those toxins through the supplements you're taking? That could be a problem. But work with folks who have the knowledge and experience to guide you, because the process of aging is multifactorial. One of the things that drive aging is chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, both of which can be mitigated to a degree through appropriate supplementation and diet.
Yep. And through diet, phytonutrients. I don't think enough of us get the polyphenols that we need to help reduce oxidative stress and to get rid of those free radicals that are occurring in our body at all times. We can definitely take care of this through nutrition and what we have available in our produce section. And again, utilizing supplements to fill in those voids. But the medicine is in front of us. It is available to us. It's just up to us to do our own due diligence and to eat correctly and to exercise, and then to get some of that knowledge about the future of our health. Preventative medicine, if you're in an area where you can see a functional doctor, whether it's an MD, chiropractor, nutritionist, NP, or whatnot, who is going to show you a preventative measurement from a laboratory standpoint, especially genetics. Genetics in the past used to cost thousands of dollars to run. Now you can reduce that cost and get some helpful information if a practitioner is able to break that down for you and saying, hey, you have a background of developing Parkinson's disease. We actually have this particular allele that you have that says you are more of a disposition of getting this around this age. We have preventative measurements that can help slow that down. So getting with the right doctor when it comes to functional medicine is very important. And that's why I love having conversations like this and being in network with people who can provide a space to get this information out, because functional medicine, even though it's a huge community, there are still a lot of people out there that are not aware of it. And it's conversations like this that help push that narrative forward. So I appreciate you having this platform, Dr. Charlene, for guests like myself to share what is happening out in the space.
Great conversation with Michael Ponce with NuMedica, NuMedica. A perfect time to bring our discussion to a close. Michael, if people want to learn more about your company, and quite honestly, to check you out, to make sure that you have those seals, which I know you do, but what would they do, or where would they go?
The easiest way to look for what a supplement should have when it comes to seals of approval, you can go to NuMedica.com, or you can Google NuMedica Advancing Nutrition. And you scroll all the way down to the front page and you will see all of the seals of approval. And you should look for those seals when you're shopping and look at your bottles to see if they have any of the 6 that we have. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to find me on LinkedIn, Michael Ponce. You can message me directly there. If you have any questions, I am an open book. I'm happy to answer any of them at the rate that I can when they come in large amounts. I'm not here to prevent or treat or diagnose anything. I'm here simply as a resource for all practitioners and the community to ensure that their health and safety is not impeded by supplements that are being marketed heavily.
That's another episode of the Healthy Brain Toolbox. Thank everyone for participating. Great conversation. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Hi, everyone. Dr. Ken Charlin here with the Healthy Brain Toolbox. I'd love to hear from you. If you have general questions about brain health, neurology, or the science of keeping your brain sharp, send them to questions@healthybraintoolbox.com. I'll be reading your questions on the upcoming episodes. Please remember, these need to be general questions. Can't answer personal medical questions or provide individual medical advice. So if you've ever wondered about brain health strategies, lifestyle tips, new research, or the future of neuroscience, send those questions in. I look forward to hearing from you, and who knows, you might even hear your question featured on the show. Thank you for tuning in to the Healthy Brain Toolbox podcast. I hope today's conversation gave you new insights to protect and nourish your brain. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone looking to take control of their health. Until next time, stay sharp and keep learning.